I think everyone experiences that fear. I think it's a universal thing when you're doing something out of your comfort zone, when you're pushing yourself beyond what's comfortable for you. But I think the difference is people that realize, okay, I'm feeling this because I'm out of my comfort zone, I'm going to take action anyway, versus I'm feeling this because I'm not ready or I don't know enough. Do you kind of feel like that self-doubt for you presents, or that fear, whenever you're leveling up? Like, do you just take it now as a sign that you're out of your comfort zone, or have you found a way to not avoid it completely, but or do you just have like a different take on it?
Okay, my favorite thing to talk about. I'm glad you brought this up. So obviously, imposter syndrome is a big part of this, right? When it comes to self-doubt. And I have experienced it a lot of times. I remember the early days of being in Oxford and thinking that, oh, this was probably like an admission mistake. That's how I made it here. You know, and that's what you feed yourself. And what really helped me was very recent. And I heard Reshma Sajani. You know Reshma Sajani?
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, she's the founder of Girls Who Code, and she's an incredible woman. And she did an incredible speech at Smith University at their graduation ceremony, where she talked about imposter syndrome and the bicycle face phenomenon. Have you heard of that?
I have seen it on your podcast. You're a book of analogies, and I'd love for you to share it.
Yeah, I would love to share that, because for me, it was the first time I watched something on Instagram and it immediately changed the way I saw things. And I was like, I need to share this with as many people as possible. So she talked about how in the early days when the first bicycle came about, it was just, you know, one of those big wheel and a small wheel. And women couldn't ride that because they were wearing all of these like really big puffy dresses, so they wouldn't be able to sit on that. Then when the normal bicycle as we know it came about, it was the first time women could now ride a bike. And the funny thing is that in those days, women needed carriages and horses and the guards to go with them whenever they needed to go anywhere. But now suddenly they needed nobody. They were fully independent with their travel. And that kind of like bothered society at that time, to the point where the men decided that we need to put an end to this. And what we're going to do is we're going to publish in the medical journal that there's a new disease called bicycle face. And it's affecting only women. And they described all of the symptoms, which were your hairline going back, getting really like rosy cheeks, getting
everything
flushed.
We care about.
Yeah. And also like your calves getting bigger. So all just the symptoms of riding a bike, you know, after like a hot summer day. Yeah. But funnily, only women are experiencing this. And then women got really scared and they actually stopped using their bikes. And many years later, when the first woman joined the medical council in the States, the first thing she did was to publish a report to annul the bicycle face, saying it is not a medical condition. And Reshma really nicely compared the fact that the bicycle face of the olden days is our imposter syndrome of our generation. We've been fed this concept that if you are somewhere and you feel like you don't belong or you don't believe in yourself, it's imposter syndrome. And now all of us suddenly are like, oh yeah, you know, I've experienced it. But it's not necessarily that. As you said, it's just the being uncomfortable because you're in a new environment, you're pushing yourself. And if we were not told that this is imposter syndrome, you would have never thought, oh, maybe I don't belong here. But it really feeds into that narrative. And that's why I understand why a lot of people say that we should not use the word imposter syndrome. And I like how you didn't use it. You said self-doubt and being uncomfortable. And I think that for me completely changed it. And I realized that being uncomfortable is amazing, because that's where all the magic happens. That's where you start to see growth, you start to see opportunities. And for me, being uncomfortable is still not something that I would say I chase. It's not something that I want, because I think it's a journey and I'm not there yet. But at the moment, I do recognize that this is, I hate this because it's uncomfortable. And I will hate it for a while. And also somebody sat me down recently, and she's a lawyer as well. And she was telling me, listen, this is going to be uncomfortable. Sit with it. Just sit with it for a bit and think, okay, it's uncomfortable. I'm just going to push it to the back of my mind. But I have to do this, because if I don't do it and I choose to end the uncomfortable phase, fine, but I don't get what I wanted to get. It's chaos in my head, you know? And for a very long time, I did not know how to deal with this, because I'm like, I'm just thinking it through. I know what I'm doing. But then I started journaling. And that really changed the game for me.